Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 21 of the Whitey and Wills Sports Show. Today is Sunday, February 6th, and we are going to go guestless tonight. It's been kind of an interesting week, just in terms of the weather throwing everybody off of their routines and stuff. So by the time we got around to thinking about recording, we decided we just talk this week and maybe keep it a little shorter than we have the last few weeks with some guests. But Mike, you and I will.
We're not getting paid by the hour,
or in any other way for that matter, other than in the we're getting paid with the satisfaction of knowing that whoever watches hopefully was entertained a little bit and then maybe informed a bit by the time it was all said and done. And you can't put a price tag on that. So there's my BS for the week. And no, we're going to talk about, it was kind of again, weather wiped out half of the basketball schedule this week, at least. We had a little snowstorm this week. You talked about it last week that we weren't going to get too many games in, and you were correct. But we do have a few games from this past week to discuss, and also girls regional pairings are out, so we can take some time to look at that. And they're doing things a little differently this year. All the girls basketball regionals begin at the same time this year. In fact, less than a week from now, when we're recording this on Saturday, February 12th, there will be regional games played across the state. Some of the preliminary early round games from regionals will get started. So yeah, we better make sure that we talk about that. And we still, despite the fact that we didn't have too much action this week, we're still going to have an Attaboy for the week. We've got I think a good plan for that. So yeah, we've plenty to talk about, Mike. There's always plenty to talk about during basketball season.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in it. Again, Monday and Tuesday, you got some games in across the area. Wednesday and Thursday, and for the most part, Friday, nothing happening. There was one boys game Friday night, and we'll get to that in a minute. But obviously, it was going to take a little more weather than we got to get St. Anthony and T-Town not to play their boys game this week. But
yeah, we probably needed another foot of snow on Friday to cancel that.
Yeah,
but it has been canceled before or postponed.
Yeah, I was going to say it always gets played. I mean, you're not gonna not play that one. But before that happened, I'm just looking the NTC girls. I'm going to start there because why not? Monday night there was a pivotal game in the NTC girls standings as far as the regular season championship. Of course, Neoga won the NTC girls tournament, and they beat Altamont in double overtime to take that tournament. But they had a pretty quick turnaround on a rematch. 10 days later, they played their regular season game, and Altamont basically Altamont couldn't win the NTC regular season, but they could play spoiler. And they had Neoga. They went to Neoga and handed Neoga a 59-57 loss. And that's a game that went, again, nip and tuck the whole way, went down to the wire. I was there watching it just as a fan. And that was big news for Cowden Herrick Beecher City and St. Anthony, because that knocked Neoga out of the conversation for the NTC regular season championship. If Neoga had won that, chances are you would have had three teams finish with one loss at the top of the standings, and they had all beaten each other. So you'd split it three ways. Well, now instead, you got St. Anthony, you got CHBC both sitting with one loss. But of course, Cowden Herrick Beecher City, that one loss was to Neoga. They beat St. Anthony. So,
So they should have the tiebreaker in hand.
Yeah, they do. So, CHBC watching that one with interest from afar. Of course, they had a game that night, so they weren't paying real close attention, but they were beating Brownstown St. Elmo by 24 points. So no sweat there. But yeah, that was the first thing that jumped into my head. St. Anthony got a win over North Clay Monday night, 59-18, just taking care of business. They've got one more conference game left to play. But yeah, that was a big game. And also Neoga and Altamont, it's interesting because there's a pretty good chance that they're going to get a rubber match later on this month. And once we get to the postseason talk, we'll get into that a little bit. But I don't know. I guess just because I was at that game, which at this point now feels like it was 3 weeks ago instead of 6 days ago. But yeah, that was a good one. And other than that, there wasn't much else that happened in the NTC. They got all their Monday night games in. Windsor Stew Straws got a win over Ramsey. Diederich lost to Robinson, which Robinson's a really good team. And then on Tuesday night, CHBC beat Sandoval. South Central got a win over Crestar Rock Lutheran. But other than that, not much else going on. Staying with the girls basketball in the Apollo, Effingham's girls played one game this week. They played Charleston on Tuesday night, and that went the way you pretty much expected it to. They beat Charleston 51-13. I gotta tell you, I broadcast that one with Greg, and there's no getting around it. Charleston's way down this year. They're 1-19. That to me has got to be a tough game. And maybe you can speak to this a little bit. That's got to be a tough game to coach because it's February and you want your team to be playing hard because regionals are right around the corner and you don't want any bad habits to set in, but you also don't want to embarrass anybody. You don't want to rub it in because I think that if Effingham wanted to put their foot on the gas, they could have won that game by as many points as they wanted to.
Sure.
But sometimes kids don't look great when they're just trying to kind of play 3/4 of a ball game. And that's kind of how I felt that game was for Jeff Schaefer's team.
You're going to deal with a lot of factors there, and a lot of things come into play. And some people, I mean, number one, yeah, you look at it when you know it's an opponent that's really, really down. Okay. Not like, oh, we should win this game by 15, 20 points. No, someone you know that's really down. You may come out and challenge your starters for a quarter to say, hey, I want to see this, or I really want us to work on our execution. Because when you've got a team that's really down, you can usually run whatever you want to run and you're going to get whatever you want to get.
Yeah.
So let's work on our execution. Let's work on our spacing. Let's work on our rotation and our help defensively, work on some things. And then after that, all right, my second group's going to get a lot of time because the worst thing you want to see is, one of your top kids step on someone's ankle coming down from getting a rebound.
Mm-hmm.
You always have that in the back of your mind. I always cringe when I see a game getting out of control basketball wise and starters still on the floor, because I've seen kids get hurt late for no apparent reason. So you worry about that, but and there's so you've got to, okay, this second group hasn't played a lot in the last 4 games. Here's a chance, and you challenge them. This isn't to come out and, hey, it's my turn to check one up. I'm not a 3 shooter, but I'm gonna start letting her fly. No, within the realms of what we're doing, let's see who now can show me they're still capable of helping me as we enter the postseason. So there's a lot of things you can work on. And, there's always in the back of your head as a head coach, Whitey, has this program ever stuck me? Okay. Because trust me, coaches a lot of times will say the correct thing, but they remember.
Yeah. I will say,
and I don't think there's been none of that between Charleston and Effingham as far as I can remember. There's been really good battles. But, there's, again, and if it's a conference opponent, you don't want to go out and embarrass and run up the score. I once had a very shorthanded group at a lower level fresh-off game, and somebody hung 100 on me. Hey, I had 7 or 8 kids not here who had been called up, and they had everybody. So, but you remember those things.
Yeah.
But it's the whole idea. I think the biggest thing is you look at it as we're going to get our work in. And then we're going to work on some other things with some other people, or maybe you work in some rotations. You leave 2 starters out there and work, because you never know what's going to happen. So you can do some things like that. But I think that's how you look at it. You look at it as a good practice opportunity to get some things done, but you don't let it get ragged and goofy and start creating those things, or you don't, obviously you don't risk anybody getting injured and a fluke injury. I'm not saying, a kid's going to go, cut a kid on a layup. No, I'm just saying you get a rebound and you land on the kid's foot, or you're shooting a jump shot and you come down on the kid's foot. Those are the last things you want to
have. Yeah, it's and again, like you went back to history between the programs. I know that Jeff Schaefer and Jeff Miller was the coach of Charleston for quite a while, up until this past year. He retired after last year. So that I don't, not in this case, nothing really like that to speak of. Lots of good battles, but always pretty good spirited, I think.
Right. Well, they respect each other. That's the key.
It's just it's interesting because Charleston's obviously a good sized school, and they're just they didn't get to play JV game that night. Like the numbers are just not there.
And that's the thing. When you don't have numbers, that's a bad sign for your program. You got to have numbers.
Yeah, I don't know what all goes into that, but that's the only way they're going to get that turned back around is to get kids to go out. And again, they're there. The athletes are there. A school that size, there's kids to play. It's just a matter of getting them back on the floor, because no matter who they are, like it's not something. It's not normal for a school Charleston size to have 3 starters in the starting lineup who are sisters, right? Like, that's cool. Really? That's cool for them, but it probably shouldn't be happening just because unless they're phenomenal players.
Right.
But
unless they're like the Hanson triplets from hockey.
But you talk about the number of kids they had available. Yeah, there were no Hanson brothers type things going on there.
See, I wondered if you were. I knew that would eventually sink in.
Nobody was putting on the foil before the game. I would have noticed that. But just it's kind of a bad sign for your program when if you had one family decide they don't want to play basketball anymore, you'd be down to about 6 kids. So I hope I don't want to see that for anybody. I don't want to see it for anybody. And Charleston's got the means to get it figured out. It's just a matter of doing it. So we'll stick with girls basketball. Let's finish out area girls. T-Town's girls, they so the previous week they had beaten Altamont and they'd beaten Effingham, but then on the Saturday they turned around and kind of took it on the chin against Breese Central. But then Monday night got a rematch with Mater Dei after beating Mater Dei in the 5th place game it was of the Highland tournament, and won another tight one with them. So getting back on the winning track, I think just a good thing for them in general with basically a week left in the season. And
then lost their BCC Saturday night game.
Yeah, they didn't get to play that one, and that one's not happening, right? Like that one is just not going to be able to get rescheduled. So the that's the problem with the weather intervening this time of year, is that it makes it pretty difficult
to make them up.
Yeah, that was the thing. That's another thing I should mention, going back to the NTC girls, like tomorrow night, Monday night, and you and I are going to be broadcasting this game. St. Anthony has its senior night Monday night, and it was supposed to be against Tuscola, but they had to tell Tuscola we can't play it because they needed to make up a game with Brownstown St. Elmo. Had to get a conference game played. And ideally they'd of course like to get both of those games in and get as many reps as possible. But Tuscola is a really good team, and just one that you really like to play this time of year, just to see where you're at.
Well, yeah, it's a great game to have on your schedule, especially late. Tuscola is going to be. Was it here or at Tuscola? It was supposed to be at Tuscola.
That one off the top of my head.
It was at Tuscola, I think. Maybe not.
I'm looking. I'm looking at the schedule now. but I don't recall off the top of my head
Okay.
where
Well,
it's supposed to be
I mean,
at.
that's where your sectional is going to be. That will give you a chance to get acclimated to the gym. Plus, it's
Yes.
a team that's very well going to be, has a
It-
really good shot at being in the sectional. I'd say they're one of two
yeah.
teams that will come out of the regional. So, there's a lot of pluses there, but
Yep.
yeah, the conference game takes precedence, and that's you know,
And it
those
was
things
supposed to be at Tuscola, so you're all those points stand. And we were talking before we started recording tonight that Tuscola, I just like the gym. It's a cool place to go play. It's sort of a crossbreed. It's not a new gym by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not an old gym either, I guess you would say. But just kind of a cross between the two, and it's got a good size to it. I don't know. Just I've seen a lot of games there over the years.
I'm trying to think if I've ever been there for a game. I may not have. I've seen pictures of it, but I don't think I've ever been there for a game.
Fun atmosphere. I've seen some postseason games there before, and you can get a lot of people in there, but it still gets noisy, even though it's there's some space. So I like it. Anybody who gets to get in there for sectional is going to be in for a treat, in my opinion. So yeah, so that's kind of that's what St. Anthony's going to be up to this week. As far as conference games and girls' side coming up, that's pretty. I mean, Yoga's got Diederich. They're going to play that one Wednesday night. So that'll be an interesting game. Diederich's a solid team, but it's not going to have any real. Obviously, the conference championship stuff is pretty well done for already. Neoga and T-Town girls play this week on Monday. They play tomorrow night, and that'll be interesting. I think. I think it's been a while since Neoga and T-Town played, and I know that I talked to Seth James this morning at church, and he's the assistant coach at Neoga, and he's looking forward to it. When he was the head coach at Neoga many years ago, that was still a conference game then, and I know that he'd like to get a win there, but it's never ever going to be easy to get a win at T-Town. So, but Neoga's got a good enough team that they can play a pretty tough game there, I think. So we'll see how that goes. Let's switch gears to boys games that happened this week. I'm going to, so that we can talk about St. Anthony T-Town last, I'm going to skip over the NTC for now. Effingham's boys played Lincoln on Monday night, and that was a makeup of a game that I believe they lost. Lincoln might have been in quarantine at some point this year. So they made that one up on Monday night, and Effingham got beat 42-31, which, all things considered, Effingham was missing some guys for that game.
I mean, aren't they down 2 due to injury?
Yeah, I mean, Powell's is out, and my understanding is that Volpe might be done. So
I think they both injuries.
at any rate, yeah, they didn't play in that game. Jet Volpe, watching him play, it always surprises me that he doesn't get hurt more than he does, because he plays with his hair on fire, and I mean that in a complimentary way. Like
that's a lot of fire.
Yeah. I think that game was even closer than 11 most of the way, was my understanding. And so Lincoln's sitting there on top of the conference standings. They haven't lost a conference game yet. So right. I think it's just good to see that Effingham, even though, this season is going to end with more losses than wins, they're still going out there, and clearly the guys who are able to get on the floor are giving it everything they've got and making people sweat. And that's all you could do in this situation. And it's admirable. I like to see it. I like to see high school kids just go out there and play for the pride of it, if nothing else, and continue to put forth a good effort. So, tough season, but they're doing all the right things. And that was the only game that Effingham played. They've got an interesting situation where they were supposed to play. Actually, did Effingham play Muhammad Seymour? Did they play?
Yeah,
Muhammad
played yesterday.
Okay, I had missed. I had forgotten about that one. And I'm looking up now because I probably should have looked to see how that game actually turned out before we went on. But I'm looking on the 97.
Muhammad was up 10-11 at the half.
Uh-huh.
It was the last thing I saw on it.
I'm figuring it out now. They got a 50. Muhammad beat them 54-41. So
okay, 13-point win.
Again, that's they had lost to Muhammad previously. Pretty similar score as I recall. So that's I think my point remains though, as far as how Effingham's gone. Muhammad's one of those schools, like, even though their record is so, you look at who they play, like, it's a bigger school and they play a lot of big school competitions. So, they're hovering around 500, but still a tough team to play year in and year out.
Oh yeah. Athletes.
Yep, absolutely. And Effingham is going to be playing. They're supposed to play Mattoon. They were supposed to play Mattoon Thursday night, and they didn't do that, of course. And they're going to do that tomorrow night. It's interesting because Effingham's girls and boys are both going to play at home tomorrow night, but they're playing different teams. The girls are going to play Lincoln, and the boys are going to play Mattoon. So that's just trying to get things scheduled, get things rescheduled in whatever way we can. So yeah, you and I are going to be doing that St. Anthony girls game against Brownstown St. Elmo on 102.3, and then on 97.9, Matt and Greg are going to be over there doing both of those games. So if you're in the area and you want basketball on the radio Monday night, you're going to get it. That's the big one. Effingham's boys, they got to turn around and they got to go to Charleston then Tuesday night, and they've got to go to Lincoln Friday. So that's a tough week. A lot of
Well, at least you're not going in this weather.
Yeah.
We just had, so.
Yeah, and I don't think anymore we're supposed to get any.
No, it looks like a good week. So
yep.
This week we can at least get everything done.
And then T-Town's boys. I mean, I guess we're going to get into the T-Town St. Anthony game, but they also, before they played St. Anthony Friday night, they got a rematch with Newton on Tuesday. Newton had knocked them off at the Christmas tournament in a really tight game. And then they turned around and played another tight game in a low scoring game.
Yeah, beat Newton by 4.
Yeah, 38-34.
Newton was down, I think, 2 and had a good look at a 3. I mean, late and missed it and got a rebound, and T-Town knocked some more free throws down to make it 4. T-Town scored 2 points in the first quarter of that game. And they're just in that funk right now. They can't get out. And then, against St. Anthony Friday night, they scored 6. So they've combined to score 8 points in the first quarter of their last 2 games. Now, they snapped out of against St. Anthony and had some nice moments, I think, and did some good things. But just struggling shooting the ball. Teams, they're seeing a lot of Brendan Nieberg is seeing a lot more box and 1, which, is fine, or maybe not just box and 1, just he's being guarded with no help, being face guarded. I'm not going to leave you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's relied on some other people. Caleb Zemer, I think, did he have 20? Right? No, he turned around and had 20 against Robinson. I think he let him. Then they beat Robinson yesterday by 64-46, 62-46. 16-point win there. And Robinson led 10 points, 11 points in the first quarter. So they're
getting out of the gate,
working through.
Getting out of the gate seems like a bit of a
that's less than 20 points combined. I think I don't remember if they had 11 in the quarter. At one point it was 22-11. But I don't know if the quarter was over then. But the thing is, their defense is going to keep them in everything. Defensively, they're still really playing well. And that's their thing is as long as they stay out of foul trouble, talked to a member of an area coaching staff after that Friday night game. And he said, the one thing about T-Town, your kids can never relax with the basketball because they're always digging, poking and prodding. And I think he said you just can't leave your wallet unattended is the way. But and they do. Even if you're not doubling down, there's something coming by and you're going by as a defender. You're poking. So it's just they're constantly badgering you. They really are. And the thing, their JV has greatly improved as the season's gone on. You get to see any of their JV kids, and they're like, and some of those kids are starting to get some minutes here and there. So it's going to be an interesting.
T-Town JV, the third place finisher from the Vandalia Holiday Tournament.
Who gave the winner or the second place team in the Vandalia Holiday Tournament all they wanted for 3 quarters, and then had a little 2-minute lapse where they got outscored about 6 or 7, 8-0. And really, other than that, it was in a tight ball game. So, it's and that game Friday night, only game in town.
Let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about it.
It was a case where crowd was pretty good.
Yeah.
It wasn't obviously your traditional crowd, just because, number one, you'd had a couple days of really harsh weather, and then you had, the temperatures were horrendous. I don't think the road conditions, they were okay.
Highways were okay.
Yeah, but it was.
By the way, we should mention T-Town won that game, 51.
Yeah, T-Town won that game by 11 points.
Yeah, 51-40.
Yeah, but the thing was, I never felt the traditional electric atmosphere in the building. It was never, and the game was back and forth until I think it was late third quarter. T-Town finally opened it up to about 7 or 8, kind of got it. Other than that, it was really tight, but it just never felt electric.
No, I would go along with that. And obviously you and I have both been to a lot of these games over the years. Yeah. And even with the lack of conference implications, which at some point I have to stop talking about that because it's been a while now, but still that always added a little something to it back in the day. But even without that, people get up for it. They want to beat each other, right?
Yeah. No, it's
in the student sections, are always up for it, always excited, always noisy.
But there wasn't as much banter between the two sections.
No, there wasn't. There
really wasn't.
I didn't, and it's always interesting because early on,
both sections, and don't get me wrong, both student sections were in the game.
They were there,
but there wasn't that traditional bantering of such, especially pregame that goes back and forth. And it just, I don't know, there just wasn't that, oh, wow, where you set up on the edge of your seat, even though I don't think the lead was bigger either direction of probably 4 points until middle of the third quarter.
And part of that, like you talked about slow starts. Well, T-Town shot 10% in the first quarter of that game.
Yeah.
And then ended up in the high 40s. So they certainly straightened it out. But both teams turned it over a bunch early on. And that kind of maybe contributed to the tone of the game a little bit too, that they were both spinning their wheels. I think I said on the air, it's like when you hit your gas too hard on a gravel parking lot
or anywhere you sputter, your car sputter.
Throwing rocks around and not really going anywhere. And that's kind of how it felt for both teams. And
really turnovers, it wasn't like either team was forcing the turnover.
No, it was a lot of passes. A lot of
hey, I'm going to turn and reverse it to you. Oh, I hope that pass doesn't hit George Meddy sitting in his chair seat because there's nobody there.
Yeah.
And it was, just as the game, and I forget if it was in the third quarter, a kid's kind of coming down the floor, and it wasn't transition, but it was secondary transition. There wasn't a break, but defense is flowing back, and this person just kind of goes a little bit to the wing and then just does a dribble, just that little behind the back shuffle dribble from right to left hand. And here's a defender just happened to be coming through and takes it. And it was just like for no reason. There was no reason to do that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, I don't want to say the possession and they weren't valuing possessions early, because I've been to a ton of, I've been to as many of these games behind the scenes as a lot of people. Obviously I haven't, wasn't involved in as many of these contests as a Kenny Crawford was, but, have been on both benches, and both teams are usually so geared up that 2 minutes into the game, kids are needing a blow because they were so worked up into a lather. They're tired about 4 trips up and down the floor. And I've seen both teams have that issue.
I wonder.
There wasn't a electricity. You were out of there. You didn't have school that day. People don't think that matters. It does.
I was gonna put that out there, is that it was a weird week, right? Like none of those kids were in school for 3 days. I've always felt like a lot of teams don't play as well on a Saturday when they're not in that.
I can see that
in that routine, and so maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know.
Like your kids slept more those 3 days than they have, or slept less. Okay, again, routine's the great word, Whitey, and it just
That's why Mike McDonald always wanted to play this. He always angled to play those playoff games on a Friday because he wanted it to be just like a regular season game. Now, most of the time, the other coach didn't want to agree to that, but I know that Mike always wanted it. And
that's why coaches hate homecoming week in football, because routine's thrown off.
Because everything's so weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Too many things going on.
The older I get, the more I appreciate that mindset. Like, I guess as I get farther away from being a kid myself, I start to understand that kids are kids and that they're pretty finicky, and like you throw them a change up and you never know what kind of a tailspin it could send them into. So this is
and like I said, being out of school 3 days, I know instances in the past where all of a sudden the kid can't play because he got injured on a 4-wheeler out jacking around in the snow one of them.
Yeah.
I know it's happened.
Yeah.
Those things happen, but it was just, it was like, I don't know, it was like you were watching it through a looking glass. You weren't there, you weren't there. It just seemed like there was a buffer on the game, and, good game, like I said, competitive.
In a losing effort, I thought that Kyle Stewart probably played as well as anybody for either team. St. Anthony's Kyle Stewart.
You kept the stats, 5 block shots.
Yeah, and also not Kyle can guard anybody. Okay, like he's athletic enough to guard a guard. He's long enough to guard a post guy. And in this case, the assignment that he drew was seamer most of the time, and he blocked. And I don't bring this up because I want Caleb Seamer to feel bad, but I bring this up because this is a tough thing to do and probably not something that Caleb has had to deal with much. But he blocked his shot, I think, 4 times that night.
I believe it. Well, he's long and he's athletic and he can get up. And there was a couple times in the game, Caleb, one time, it was in the second half, made a catch mid-post, maybe on the block side, just made a real quick, nice post move, went up and scored. And I'm like, where is that for post? Too many post guys want to catch in a hold today. He caught it. He made his mind up. He's made the move. He scored. Looked awesome doing it. And it's like, do that more often. Or, catch it. Now here comes the double. Now you can kick out quick. And Caleb's not adverse to kicking the ball out. So he's not a black hole. and he's done a good job this year.
Mhm.
But again, he has some problems, I think, against athletic bigs who can go up and block his shot, i.e., like Brett Meddy used to have some back in the day. Brett used to
Well,
sometimes struggle with a guy on his back who was athletic enough to go up and swat a shot out of the air.
and the other thing you got to think about too is that, you're talking about what Caleb's doing on the offensive end of the floor, but then on the other end of the floor, he also was guarding Stewart. And the problem with that is that Stewart will play out on the wings and bring you out. And so that's not something I'm guessing Caleb is asked to do on a regular basis.
And he hit a couple threes that night, which, you got a kid who can shoot that. You need to use that weapon. But Caleb holds his own defensively. He does a good job. He gets his hands on a lot of boards.
I'm just saying that he's having to work hard on the defensive end of the floor.
Right. Oh, yeah. No. And like I said, I thought the kids played well. Brendan Eberge kind of snapped out of a little mini slump there in the fourth quarter, hit a couple big threes.
Yeah. Hit some threes and hit some free throws, too.
Just like he's like he's shooting at carnival rims. He's really had tough luck shooting the ball the last few times I've seen him. And it's not like he's bricking things. It's just, in and out, front of the rim, back of the rim. He's just having a hard time getting the ball to go through the hole. He's been forced to do some other things. But I thought they, as a team, I thought they played well. Like I said, defensively, they forced some turnovers. They were the beneficiaries of turnovers, but yet they turned the ball over a few times themselves. Just silly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Early, they did. I will say this: they got it under control a little bit. Most of their turnovers came in the first quarter and a half or so.
Yeah.
And St. Anthony had some late in the game that at times where they just couldn't have it, right? Like where they needed to put points on the board to stay in the game. And not only did they not put points on the board, but they weren't able to get a shot off. And that's
right.
That's got to be frustrating. But T-Town, again, they got the job done, and I don't know what more you can say than that. And with with Brendan, I think he's going to get in a rhythm at some point and get back on track. I think
you don't want to be in the opposing journey when the opposing uni when that comes out, when he comes out of that little mini funk, because he's doing so much more. I think now he's looking to take the ball to the hole a little bit more, pull up, shoot off the dribble, shoot the little teardrop. He's really expanded. I think at Thanksgiving, he was very reliant on being a spot shooter, which he's not, but I think he was. So I think now when everything comes back around, and Chet Reeder wants nothing more than to see him shooting well come postseason, and then it's Katie bar the door. If that happens and they can get away from this, they're not letting Brendan touch it. These other kids, the other two Nieberges, Seamer, Altoff, some of the kids off the bench. The Gaddis kid came off the bench and hit 4 threes, I think, at Taylorville the other night. Just there's a lot of weapons. It's just.
Well, and Dylan Prummer had a nice game off the bench too. Yeah. He scored 10 points off the bench. And Max Nieberge had a couple of moments. There was one time where he just put on the Jets from about midcourt and just beat everybody to the basket. Easy layup. I mean,
Max he's quick. And the thing about it is, I know Max has had a couple games offensively where he's struggled a little bit, but it hasn't affected his defense. He's guarded. He guards hard. James Nieberge's had some games where he's really showed some signs, going hard to the hole, doing things. He was a little hesitant to start of the St. Anthony game, but then once he started taking some shots, he looked to shoot. So, Prummer's going to get the spot up threes, because if you're going to be that focused on Brendan Nieberge, other people are going to get looks. Joey Ruhal gets his 1 3-pointer, 2 3-pointers a game, whereas, it's a Plinko game, and then they kick it out to him and he's wide open. And, so and then, like I said, they turned around and beat Robinson by 16 yesterday, an athletic Robinson team. So it's just a case where I really feel we've got a lot of teams in the area that can go on runs.
Yeah.
You know,
and
on the boys' side, I really feel that way.
And I think St. Anthony fits that bill. Like they've got the kids to do it. You know, I mean, you look
And
at
Anthony does, Altamont does, Windsor does, North Clay does.
Yes.
You know,
yeah,
I think those four, your final four in your NTC, could do some things.
Yeah. I
mean, I really do.
St. Anthony, the problem for them Friday night against T-Town was that really outside of Kyle Stewart, they weren't getting a lot of offense consistently out of anybody.
No.
People and kind of not looking to score so much. I mean, Craig Croy is going to look for a shot. You know, he's an offensive minded player, and he scored 10 points.
He was being guarded pretty well.
Yeah, but you know, when they made one little last gasp run in the fourth quarter where they got 3-pointers out of they got one out of Griffin Sahi, and I think Brock
I believe that was his only bucket of the game.
Yeah, well, he and Brock Fearday each hit a 3-pointer in the fourth quarter, and that's all the scoring they did. You know, what you need obviously is to like get contributions from all those guys, you know, simultaneously, and then all of a sudden you become very difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
But that's
when kids are averaging 8 to 9 a game and they're getting 2 and 3, that puts a lot of stress on the kids who are scoring more.
Yeah, and you know, obviously easier said than done, but I've enjoyed watching Brock Fearday since he got his big break at the Christmas tournament. He plays with a tremendous confidence, you know, and he's going to. But by the time it's all said and done, as long as he stays healthy, you know, going to be a major name in this area for the next.
I like his confidence. He and the Western North kid from Dietrich are the two freshmen that I've seen playing serious varsity minutes who don't act like freshmen.
Yep. So that you know, St. Anthony's overall record 14-12. Again, that's, you know, not fabulous, but we've talked already about the fact that they don't play a cupcake schedule by any means. They've got you know, that you look at the other NTC teams that played this week, there wasn't a lot to talk about. The only conference games were Dietrich beating St. Elmo Brownstown in overtime, 62-57. North Clay got a win over Neoga, 56-51. You know, you talk about North Clay. You know, they're getting things going in the right direction at the right time. So be interesting to see what kind of noise they can make coming down the street.
They're another team that's trying to figure out how to play against a boxing one.
Yeah, for sure. But that really, Altamont beat Flora in a non-conference game, 45-41. CHBC beat Mulberry Grove by 13, and Windsor Stew Straws got painted by 2, 51-49. That's it.
That's a big win.
Yeah, all those games were Tuesday night. That's all that we really got besides the Friday night T-Town St. Anthony game. Yeah, that's a good win for Windsor Stew Straws.
You know, on the Vandalia tournament.
Yeah, that's you know, I mean, and that's a much Paina's, you know, it's just a lot bigger school, right? Like, I mean, even
well, that's just another case of stepping outside the NTC and playing somebody else who's good, and you hang an L on them. That's a good one for Bob Lockhart's group.
Yep, absolutely. They're a fun team. They're sitting at, I've got them at 19-5. I think they're going 20-5. They got a forfeit win in their Christmas tournament, and so I know that like the record that I've heard for them is always one win more than what I've got. But when I'm trying to keep track of average scoring, I can't very well.
You hang on to those because when I was 1-22, I had a forfeit win, so I was really 2-22.
Yeah, that's.
Every once in a while, I got to pull that card out.
This week in the NTC, there's not really, as far as games that have any implications for the conference championship. There's not really much. You're kind of St. Anthony and South Central do play Tuesday night. And South Central has only got 2 conference losses, so they're still, they're
They
still
can still be spoiler there.
Yep. And they certainly could. Like, they're good enough. They've got 19 wins too, for God's sake. There's some teams that have stacked up some wins in this league. But obviously, I think all eyes are down the road a little bit on the 14th or 15th, rather, which is the Tuesday night, a week from this Tuesday. St. Anthony and T-Town are going to play at St. Anthony or St. Anthony and Altamont. I'm sorry, going to play at the Inlow Center, and that's going to be one to keep an eye on. Going to be obviously a huge battle, but that's still just a little more than a week down the road. So anyway, I think that pretty much covers the local.
Who's T-Town have this week? Matt Toon, I think.
T-Town's boys. They've got no, Matt Toon's not till next week. They got Matt Toon. This week, I'm not seeing anything for them until Saturday, until the shootout. And I haven't seen a schedule for the T-Town.
They're playing, I think they play PBL in the shootout.
Paxton Buckley. I'll always have bad feelings about Paxton Buckley Loaded, just because we had to go up there for a football game and had to sit out in the elements, and then Effingham got beat. And
that's when that big hurricane was on the way.
Yeah. And
I remember my son was playing, or I thought, oh my gosh, we got home, we drove in the rain home. It didn't start raining hard till about Matt Toon, but
I can't remember if that's the place where we couldn't find the field either. There was some place where we ended up
right by the interstate. Why did you could have parked on the shoulder?
That must not be it then. I just remember there was a game somewhere where we didn't know where the field was. The field was not at the high school, and we couldn't figure it out. And so we ended up stopping off at a local Legion Hall.
There you go.
And
they know everything.
And Greg went inside and got someone to tell him not only where it was at, but the guy and
offered to buy him a beer.
Got in his car and drove, led us there, which I'm not so sure about stopping off at a bar and having somebody drive you to the game, but that's how it went. So
yeah, I understand. You got to keep an eye on that.
So I'm going to share my screen. And
I don't have to get my iPad up then if you're going to share your screen.
We're gonna look at girls regionals. So let's see here. Here we go. So we're gonna start with 1A, and
Wayne City Super Sectional. That's hard to say.
Wayne City Super Sectional, yeah. The Tuscola sectional is what we've got an eye to, because pretty much any local team that we follow is going to be playing toward that Tuscola sectional. And honestly, there's under that sectional, there's 2 regionals to keep an eye on. There's this Altamont regional, and then down here there's the Cumberland regional. So I'll start looking at Altamont. That starts on the February 12th, week from yesterday, on Saturday. Got a couple play-ins, First of all, I guess the big thing to me is that you look at the seedings. First of all, Neoga got the number 1 seed in this sectional. St. Anthony got the 2. Cowden Herrick Beecher City got the 3, and Altamont got the 4. But I think maybe 2 weeks ago, before the NTC girls tournament got played, you would have pretty much pegged Cowden Herrick Beecher City as the number 1 seed, and things have gotten turned a little sideways since then. But I really think that it's a scenario where you look at Neoga and Altamont are both in this Altamont regional, and no offense to any other teams playing in there. Windsor Stew Straws, they play South Central. Brownstown St. Elmo's got North Clay, but I mean, really, it's most likely going to end up being Neoga and Altamont in the championship there, and your
seed's hold.
It's hard to peg that one, because those 2 teams have played each other twice this year. Games decided by a grand total of 6 or 7 points, with a couple of overtimes thrown into one of them.
Yeah.
And I would not, I'd have a hard time betting against either one of those teams to come out of that regional. And then down here,
You can't pick a tie. It doesn't work
and down here, I mean, you're again looking at a situation where it's probably going to be St. Anthony and Cotton Beecher City. You know, stranger things have happened, but you know, for instance, like I see Cumberland playing Martinsville here. Cumberland ate Martinsville's lunch for them not too awful long ago, so I feel pretty comfortable.
And Casey's really down, so you know Dietrich and Cumberland are going to get those games.
Yep.
So Dietrich St. Anthony girls should be a good ball game.
Yeah, Dietrich's girls are good this year. You know, they've got they're in a good spot. They've won a lot of ball games, and several more than they've lost this year. And Cumberland's having the best season it's had in more than a decade. In fact, they've got two more regular season games, one of them against a conference opponent that hasn't won a game all year. And then assuming they could take care of business against Martinsville, they ought to get to 20 wins this year. Like I know 18 was what they were, you know, they hadn't done that in a long time and they've gotten there. But man, 20 would be nice for Sammy and her team. But they played Cowden Beecher City really tough in their Christmas tournament up in Arthur. So, or no, did they play that was at Thanksgiving. They played them tough at Thanksgiving at the CHBC Thanksgiving tournament. So, you know, I don't know. They could make it in. Both of those semifinals could be interesting.
Yeah, it's be a real good ball game next Monday night. Both.
Yeah, no matter what, I think you know, you're looking at a championship game there that again should be a really good ball game. I look at all the teams in this section. I look at all the teams in those two regionals that we just talked about. And to me, St. Anthony can be about as dangerous as any of them right now. Like, I just think
I haven't seen them play. I'll get to see them tomorrow night. But no, I mean, you've talked about them, knowing the kids, seeing them do some things. I think they've got a decent group, and it could be, you know, should be interesting. I mean, you're going to get, you know, you're probably going to get two good local teams go to a sectional, which is what you want.
Yep. And the other regionals in there, I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about these teams.
Let's not even talk about them.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. I will tell you the number one seed in the other two. Hume Shiloh, that's confusing. That's Tri-County. Okay. Right. IHSA's got a little weird way of talking about it, but that's Tri-County, and they've been pretty good for a while now, probably a little further down this year than they have been in a while, but still a good team. Yeah, down here, Tuscola, I know they're pretty solid, but not even the highest seed in that Macon Meridian Regional, Salt Fork. But yeah, it's hard for me to talk too much about these because these are just not teams that we follow. You know, can't follow everybody. So
right.
Hopefully we'll get a chance to see a couple of those teams play. You know, once some of our, I mean, we pretty much have no choice but to see teams that we are interested in come out of those other two regionals, I would think, unless something really crazy happens. Especially this one in Altamont here. That's all NTC schools besides Ramsey. Yep. So let's go to the 2A now. Now these next two won't take as long to talk about because we don't have as many teams that we follow in these classes. But
really just one.
T-Town's girls are in the
Salem region,
Monticello
sectional,
which feeds into the Monticello sectional, which feeds into the Vandalia Super. So you look at T-Town, they got the number one seed over here, and you know, I've seen Robinson, which is, you know, the next highest seed in this regional. I've seen them play, and they can. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Boy, who gave this guy the mouse? I'm sorry. Here, we're back here.
Seasick.
Yeah. So anyway, Robinson's solid, but it's hard for me to pick against T-Town coming out of this regional, right? Like, I mean,
right. I agree.
It's just, I mean, you look at what T-Town does on a year-to-year basis. There's really no reason to ever not pick them to win a regional. They just pretty much and
those T-Town girls, if they take the floor in a regional championship game, they've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it'd be it's on a Thursday night, so you get a pretty good crowd probably. Sometimes schools who haven't been there get a little shell shocked.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've always said that T-Town being T-Town it's worth a few buckets, I mean, even to this day, there's a little more parity on the girls' side of things than there was 10, 15, 20 years ago. But the fact of the matter is you go up against T-Town and you've heard so much, like just through the generations, like you've heard so much about what this program is and what it means to play them. And that's not to say that T-Town doesn't earn every regional they win and every sectional they win and every trip to state, because they do. But it certainly is an intimidating thing to have to go up against them because, yeah, they have a history. They have a strong legacy in the girls basketball in the state. So good luck to anyone who goes up against them, but they're a tough out. But you look at some of these other regionals, and there's some interesting teams that are going to be you get out of your regional. There's some interesting teams waiting. The winner of the Salem regional plays the winner of the Clinton regional, and looky here, you got Paris.
Yeah, potential rematch based on according to Hoyle.
I mean, first of all, the seedings are a little interesting there, just because T-Town and Paris played each other, and Paris got the win, but it was a close game. Could have gone either way.
They're not that Paris got the 2 go down. What was Pena?
Pena
got Pena and 1. They're not. Pena and Paris are together, and the seeding is Fairfield and T-Town together. Gotcha. The way those are split. Yeah.
Pena over, but even Pena over Paris is interesting to me. I mean, Paris has just been killing people all year long, and I get that maybe playing in a little Illini, they're not getting a lot of really like stiff competition in the conference schedule, but they've gone outside their conference and played some little tournament that they have at the beginning of the year. They get Team Terre Haute in there and play, and I don't know. They're at any rate, if you go into a sectional semifinal and have to play Paris, well, you're going to be challenged. Okay.
Yep.
And I don't know anything about Clinton, but I'm going to assume that Paris probably comes out of that. That would be the smart money, I would think. And that's going to be tough. And again, down here, you got Pena in here, Arthur Lovington, Atwood Hammond, really good team. They haven't lost too many ball games this year. And then Marshall's girls, I don't know as much about Fairfield, but I've been following the little Illini scores, and Marshall is really the only team in the LIC that's given Paris much to think about. Marshall is good. So that's going to be a really good, what I'm getting at is it's going to be a solid sectional.
Yeah, it's going to be a good sectional. And, this time of year, that's what you want to see. You like those things. That's when it's supposed to get tough. Heck, we had the same 4 teams in our sectional 2 years in a row. You just play different people in your first round game. But this is when it starts getting fun.
I always go back to with the T-Town girls, there was a sectional they played in, and they might've been hosting that one with Olney was in it with Brittany Johnson. And at that time, I think Martinsville had the Dinky girl that ended up playing in a Division I program. She might've gone to Illinois. I don't think it worked out there, but then obviously T-Town's girls had aerial hockey and Katrina Swingler and, other kids that it's been long enough that I'm not going to have instant recall on the names. I apologize for being old, but that was a killer sectional and so much fun to watch because and Paris was in that one too. And Paris had a really good team that year also. So
didn't Olney end up winning that?
I believe so. And any chance you got to see Brittany Johnson play. As it turns out, you were, you were seeing something that you don't see very often. So yeah, it was that was a lot of fun, and I think that this at least in terms of competition and level and not really knowing anything other than it's going to be a good game, how these are going to turn out, that Monticello sectional ought to be a good one. So
quality games.
yep, absolutely. Let's go to 3A, and you know who that means. Effingham gets to host a regional.
There you go.
And they drew a 3 seed on their side of the sectional, which means that they've got Olney first. But that's not a gimme by any stretch of the imagination. And we've already talked about Charleston, so you'd be pretty certain that they're going to end up playing this Mount Vernon team.
So
if they win,
there's a good chance Jeff's going to be playing for a regional championship on his home floor. That's all you can ask for.
Yeah. And, I have said this more times than once, but Effingham's overall record is pretty good and not great. But you look at how good the Apollo has been, and it's fine. It really is. And playing all those teams, playing Lincoln twice, playing Mattoon twice, playing Muhammad Seymour twice, they've played T-Town twice this year. Those games are going, while most of those games did not go Effingham's way, they're going to serve you really well when it comes time to play a tough regional game, and that's why you play them, and that's why you try to take something away from them, even if you don't come out victorious. Just try to figure out a way to make some noise. Make some noise once it's win or go home time.
Yeah, and it's just when you face tough enough competition, Mount Vernon's a 2, Effingham's a 3. If you had the Nesto strength of schedule, I don't know that Mount Vernon's schedule is going to be tougher than Effingham's, to be honest. I don't know. Like I said, facing Mattoon twice, Lincoln twice, T-Town twice, Muhammad twice. There's 8 pretty tough ball games.
Yeah, there's really no shame in
no. So and like I said, that's that'll be good. Again, Jeff gets to play it at home, so good luck to the Lady Hearts in that one. And only problem is you get out of there, you got to go to Bethalto for your sectional, which you may have to pack a lunch to go there.
We'll go to Bethalto for a sectional, and chances are play Bethalto on their home floor because they're one of the top seeds along with Mattoon in this sectional. And so, that's, it's an unenviable position, but at the end of the day, you'll take playing in a sectional any year, no matter how tough that matchup ends up being.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, 3A is always interesting because it doesn't. Effingham will, they'll host a lot of regionals, but then after that, you never know how far you're going to have to go to play those next games. It's just there's the 3A schools in this part of the state are just so spread out that you never know. But Mattoon's also in this. They're also in this sectional. They're going to be down at Heron. Think about that. They got to go to Mattoon to Heron. What kind of that's a trip right there. And so they get to do that. And the other one is that Troy Triad. Can't say I know too much about any of the teams there. So
Effingham's glad that Mattoon's going there and not coming to Effingham.
Yep, I think that's the good thing, right? Yeah, is that if you play in Mattoon again, it's going to be in a sectional. It's going to be a sectional final for that matter. So you'd be pretty excited to get that opportunity, no matter how it turns out. So there you go. There's a look at the postseason assignments for all the teams. I think that we would consider part of what we're paying attention to. We sort of kind of unofficially stick to the same coverage area, I guess, that the radio station tries to do. I don't know what more you can do.
No, that's good. I mean, like I said, who we should touch on. Um, and again, next week to the ladies, good luck starting your postseason.
Yeah.
The only, the hardest problem is it's one and done. And you have that night where you don't come out and play well and you get beat, where you feel like you shouldn't have. Not like, oh, we're going to be in a good game. It's like, hey, we're the one playing the 9, and all of a sudden it happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it's the hardest. I mean, every end of the year game's hard with your kids in the locker room. I mean, it's the worst feeling in the world as a coach to go into that locker room. And I've done it from, regional final to a super sectional, and it's no fun. I mean, kids are just gutted, and it's the hardest part. Don't tell me kids don't feel like they're part of something when you see these kids when they've lost, especially your seniors.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing I ever wrote when I was at the newspaper was a little column I wrote, and it was after I overheard a kid before a game say, I just want to lose so we can go home. And I didn't mention, obviously didn't name names or anything. I wasn't trying to go after anybody, but I just wrote about how you get to be done with high school. And at that time I was still pretty young working at the newspaper, and it's tough to go watch those high school kids play because you feel like, man, I wish I could still be doing this, and it's not that far in your rearview mirror. And I guess the point of it was, like, you don't take it for granted, right? Like, you'll never get a chance to do this stuff again in your life. Like,
exactly.
It's a special thing. And so by that token, it's also it's a difficult thing to watch a senior, play their last game. They've put a lot of times put their heart and soul into it for not just 4 years, but however long they've been playing the sport, and
right.
They'll never get that opportunity again. So,
I mean, I've seen them decided at the buzzer. I've seen them decided the start of the fourth. I mean, where you're pulling the kids out one at a time to give them an ovation. I mean, I've seen them both, and I don't know that one's easier than the other.
So speaking of seniors, and speaking of seasons ending or maybe looking like they had ended, but didn't end up being quite finished. Back on December 2nd, Matt Robinson and I were broadcasting a St. Anthony girls game. They were playing Windsor Stew Straws. And toward the end of the game, a young lady, one of the 3 seniors on the St. Anthony team by the name of Izzy Hackman, she went down awkwardly. And at first I honestly just thought that she'd fallen on her tailbone, and that's a sensitive spot, right? Like, I think we've probably all done that at some point. You fall on your butt, and like just that initial jolt of pain, like you just feel like the world's ending, but usually you shake it off. And that's kind of what I thought had happened to her. But by the time the evening was over, she was on a stretcher being taken off the floor, and they didn't play the rest of that game. It happened in the fourth quarter, and my last few minutes, they didn't play it. And then that was on December 2nd. And for the next 5, 10, 15 games, her name didn't show up in any of the box scores. And she avoided any broken bone or anything like that, but just wasn't able to get back on the floor, had some residual effects from that. But then you saw the last couple of weeks, all of a sudden, her name has started to show back up in those St. Anthony box scores. And I was just so happy to see that, because one of the worst things you can see in high school sports is for a kid in their senior season to go down with an injury and not get to end it in competition, to not get to be on the floor playing their last game, or to have their last game happen and they didn't even realize it was happening until that thing happened. And so I'm just really really glad that whatever Miss Hackman has had to do to get back on the floor, I'm really happy for her that she is able to play again. And with regionals right around the corner, she's going to get to play some basketball and at least come as close to ending things on her terms as she can. Obviously, the other team always has a say in it, but I'm just glad that she gets to play. And I'm sure it's taken a lot of hard work for her to get back on the floor. But especially since it's been a week where there wasn't a ton of actual basketball being played, I thought that this would be a really good time for us to bring Izzy Hackman up and just congratulate her for getting back on the floor. And for that, Izzy, this one right here is going out to you.
Whitey, your timing's always so much better when you're doing the award. There's no pause. There's no pregnant pause.
I guess that probably isn't. I'm trying to get better, but
you hit the nail on the head. Seeing seniors dealt. I mean, I dealt personally with the kid who lost the bulk of his senior season, and I was kind of became the person in practice who took him down into the hallway and started doing let's try to get this kid back to where we think he can play, because he can't damage the knee any worse, and surgery's put off for a while. And to see the work this kid was putting in, and we found, we were able to do some things, and we tried him a couple trips in a game, and he couldn't do it. He eventually got to go out there in a regional final for 10 seconds. We called the timeout. The game was decided. Wasn't the same. Affected our team greatly. But I know I watched, and Blake Taylor's who was at the top, so I watched what Blake went through it. And that was a team that, to be honest, probably, if he was healthy, probably would have been playing for Hardware and Peoria. And I say that in all earnest. I've never seen a team start the season at such a high level as that team did in 20, been the 10 or 11 or 11-12 season. But the level they started the season, not we're working up to, they started and were building, and it was just, and it was gone. And then pretty soon another kid got hurt. And then pretty soon another kid got hurt. The others came back, never 100%. And it just was, but so watching what a senior goes through, losing that senior season, you always tell kids, play every game like it's your last. And they look at you like you're nuts, coach. What are you talking about? And then when they actually understand, then those kids will tell you.
You kind of don't want them to understand it, right?
Exactly.
But sometimes it happens. You talk about T-Town kids who get hurt. Caden Altoff, earlier in the season, blowing out a knee in a basketball game. The good news that I was hearing Friday night, Greg had talked to somebody, and I guess it sounds like he's going to get his chance to still pitch his senior season in T-Town. That's what the talk was. So
I saw him on the bench. I asked him, I said, "You're not playing tonight?" He just kind of smiled and looked at me, and it's tearing him up. He's a competitor. These other kids, I guarantee Izzy Hackman, the whole time she's not been able to play, has just been, come on, I want to get in there and play. It does. It wrecks you. FEM, we mentioned the two of their kids who are missing, probably may be missing the rest of their season.
Yeah.
It's just, you feel for them, man.
Yep. Not the way you want it to go. It's part of sports, I guess. Life lessons in there and all that, but it doesn't make them any fun. So,
nope.
But Izzy's a good story, and we're going to get a chance to see her tomorrow night when we do their game, and we'll get a chance.
I'll bring a gift card you can present.
We'll present it to her. We'll get coach to maybe send her up after the game, and we'll have to explain to her what's going on. High school kids never completely understand what exactly why we're handing them a gift card for $10. But thanks to Pizza Man and Joe's Pizza again for sponsoring that award. Very nice of them to do that. We've, no matter how big of a deal it actually is to any of these kids, I'm glad that we're able to do it. Glad we're able.
And what time do we start tomorrow night? Why isn't it early?
Yeah, because they're playing JV like two halves, continue 10-minute running clock halves beginning at 6 o'clock. So yeah, I'm going to be there at the gym probably by 6 just to be safe.
Okay, that's fine. I may try to get Mason Robinson his delivered from last week. So I figured it was me being sick 2 days and then the treacherous travels. I really didn't want to head to.
You're excused. You're excused. All right. Well, thanks everybody for checking this out. We'll go ahead and cut it off here. We still managed to go well over an hour, so that's just us.
Yeah, I'm blaming you for this.
We can talk. That's all there is to it. We like to talk. In love with the sound of our own voices. But yeah, we'll exciting times ahead. So lots more basketball to talk about before it's all said.
And we'll be back with a guest next week. So
sounds good.
We'll have that work back out.
All right. Well, Mike, until we're on the radio tomorrow night, we'll talk to you later.
See you, Lonnie.
Later.